Good morning, good morning. Welcome to another show of our Voices of the Festival. I hope you're doing well. Um, Here's Carlton, ready to go. And I'm going to invite him to join us. And there we go. Carlton. Carlton move. There we go. And he should join us in a second. There you are.
Ah,
Well, hello.
hey, how's it going?
Good, good, good. Good morning, good morning.
Yes, good morning to you.
Where are you?
I'm in my apartment in New York, in
Yeah.
Chelsea.
Okay.
My wife is in the other room. She's working from home today, so she's also in a meeting.
All right, all right. So, yep. So, congratulations, a new wife.
Thank you. Yes, we just got married on the 26th of October in San Francisco,
Wow.
and it
Recent,
went great.
recent.
Yes, we're very much newlyweds. Um, the wedding
And
went great.
why San Francisco?
We were in San Francisco. She's originally from the Bay Area.
Okay.
She's the north of there, from like the Saratoga area, and her dad was still out there, and he was sort of like having health issues, and so we wanted to make sure it was easy for him to get there. So we did it as close to him as we could, while still like being able to do a lot of the stuff we wanted to do.
Great,
And it all really worked out really, really great. He was able to be there at the ceremony and walk her down the aisle, and it was gorgeous.
great. Oh, good, 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 good. So excellent. I'm glad that and well, congratulations again. That is
Yes.
recent,
No,
recent.
the wedding went well. I got food poisoning during our mini honeymoon in Napa,
Oh, oh,
and
that's sad.
I've been told that that's good luck apparently, but
Okay.
it didn't feel like it at the time. And then and then I had a mishap with my wedding band on the airplane back. I accidentally dropped it in the toilet.
Oh, no.
Yes, and that was a whole situation, but thankfully they were able to retrieve it without any damage to it, and I, sanitized it a lot, and it was
Right,
fine.
of course, of course. Wow. All right.
Yeah.
That was like I can imagine the oh
Oh
no
yeah. No.
feeling.
Thankfully, Allison, I came back to my seat and I didn't have my ring on, and she just laughed and thought the whole thing was hilarious, but
Right.
it was horrifying. It was like I gasped when it happened. It was terrifying, but
I know. I know. Well, at least you know where it was.
yeah.
um, Excellent. Good. So, how's it going? Good. We all heard the news that for everyone, and we all know Carlton, and it's a big favorite of Savannah West Festival, and we know since he started, he came for with us. That was I think 2015, 2014.
It was 2014.
Okay,
Yeah.
and you came to the summer of 14, and 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 since then you started starting in Phantom of the Opera as Piangi. Are you using the Phantom cap?
Not today. I've
Okay.
got a little like this is like a little merch from a stand-up comedian I really enjoy actually,
Okay.
but
All right. Good. So, but also we all heard the news that the Phantom is closed. Is closing. Did you guys knew in advance of the announcement?
we really didn't. It was a whole sort of ridiculous situation of the story of it got leaked to the press, to the New York Post, and then we sort of were getting texted the story from people, and we were asking, our people and our bosses basically like, what's the deal with this? And then and it was so bad because there was a rehearsal that day too, so everyone was in the building except for me. I was in the air flying to Chicago to
Okay, to the
go
wedding.
to Angela Devanuto and Leo Radosavljevich's wedding, who are also people who would do Savannah.
Yes.
And but so yeah, I was in the air. Everyone was in rehearsal, and then they realized they needed to, like have a company meeting about this. So they did a big Zoom meeting because I wasn't. Not everyone was like physically in the building.
Hmm.
So we did a big Zoom meeting, and they basically broke the news to us that due to sort of material costs, outpacing the income in the show, they're going to have to close it. And after, it'll be 35 years in January. And that's, I mean, 8 shows a week for 35 years. And so it's a long run. I mean, the second longest run on Broadway is about 10 years shorter than that. I think it's like Chicago has been
Mm.
running 5 years or something. So yeah, it's quite, I mean, a historic show, and yeah, we were all pretty sad about it, because it was a bit of a surprise, and there's people who've been in that cast for 10, 15, 20 years. There's at
Wow.
least one or two people in the orchestra who've been there the whole time, like since it opened. So yeah, I was sad, but I don't know. It's like Phantom of the Opera. It's one of those entities where it's like a hydra. As soon as you cut one head off, two more take its place. So I feel like while this production may be closing, its set date is February 18th. There will likely be others that open up. Either like a new national tour or what have you, and there may be opportunity for me there. But yeah, I never thought my personal time at Phantom would end this. I figured, oh, they'll recast me. I'll find another job or something, and that'll cause me to leave, whatever. But the show will still be around, of
Right.
course, because it's
Right.
around forever. But no.
Right. That's a surprise. Well, hopefully, I mean, it seems like, right. I imagine that now the shows are selling extremely well. Right.
Yes, we are virtually sold out, um, like almost completely until the closing date at this point. Like for all the tickets, for all the dates that they're selling tickets for, it's almost impossible to get a seat for any of those because they're so sold. And they do standing room, and occasionally people try and resell their tickets, so it's not impossible, but it's yeah, it's very
No,
well sold.
it's- and since it's selling so well, do you think they're going to extend it a bit?
I think so. I mean, it just makes sense too. Like, there's been a number of examples of this, like The Music Man right now on Broadway with Hugh Jackman and Sutton Foster. They announced that they're closing in January, and then just a couple days ago, they announced they're actually going to extend that by 2 weeks. And so I think in the face of success, it's just hard for like a producer of a Broadway show to stop something that's profitable before it's time, right? And so I think as long as the show is selling as well as it is, and that's I can't imagine they won't extend, but we don't know for sure. And you know uh, because Phantom's gone on for so long, it could really go either way. They could say it is selling really well, but we still want to get the ball rolling on closing it and
Mm.
maybe starting something else. So I don't know.
Has he always been in the same theater?
Yes, it's been in the Majestic Theater on 44th Street near 8th Avenue since 1988. And the thing with Broadway theaters is when a show closes and gets taken out of the theater, the crew who work the theater have to reset it back to the way it was before that show was in it, before a new show can come in.
Mm.
And this show has been there for so very long, and they did a lot to get this show built into it. They had to dig underneath the stage. They expanded the depth underneath the stage. They removed an elevator that previously went from below the stage up onto the stage. Like they made like fairly significant changes to the theater to make Phantom work in it. So I'll be interested to see if they try to bring it back to what it was before, what it was in 1988 before Phantom was in
Right.
it. But I feel like they'll if at least they'll like renovate the theater because it's due for some renovations at this point. It's been long enough, and we'll see what goes in there next. I don't know.
Right. And did the show start in London or start in New York?
It did start in London. It originally opened in London in 1986.
Mm.
I don't remember what month, but it was, yeah, about 2 years before. And so technically their run would have outlasted ours, except they closed it when the pandemic hit and the shutdown happened. They like actually closed the show,
Mm.
and and then when they reopened, they were able to make changes, and decent, fairly sizable ones to the production. I mean, they adapted the UK tour production that they had made and had just started before the shutdown closed it to the stage in London at Her Majesty's Theatre. Although I think it's being renamed to His Majesty's Theatre. But yeah, so more is the same between the two productions, like the London production and the Broadway one. But there are a few things that stand out as being like distinctly different. So
So the London show is still running.
oh yeah, they came back. They closed during the pandemic and then they reopened. I think actually before the Broadway show reopened. I think it was in the summer of 20. Would it be summer 21? I guess.
And are they closing there or not?
They are not closing because like I say, when they came back and reopened, they kind of made changes to make the production a little cheaper. And so I
Mm.
think because of that, they've got a bit more staying power in sort of moments like this, where you call it sort of like an economic downturn, or I don't know. I don't know if we're in a full blown recession yet, but at the very least, inflation is high, and uh, you know, uh, people are less likely to go to the theater or have money to spend on it. So in those lean times, having the show be a little cheaper makes it easier to sort of weather that storm.
Hmm.
And for instance, like they cut their orchestra in half. I think there's
Oh wow.
14 people in the orchestra there, and now and there's 27 in our orchestra, or 28. So just little things like that make it so that they can deal with varying economic moments, I guess.
Right. Right. Huh. Good. Well, I mean, so I guess if people want to see it again, I mean, after February, they had to go to London.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's some Australian productions happening. I don't know how long they're gonna go for, and little productions here and there. Like there's gonna be one in the spring, I think, in Greece, a replica production, and but yeah, for the original Hal Prince production, this is kind of your last chance to see it on Broadway until February at least, or possibly later. We'll see.
Yeah. All right. So Carl. So tell us about you. When do you start singing?
Ooh, I started singing. I started singing in choir when I was in middle school. I want to say seventh grade.
Okay. Why?
Um, it was I'd already been. I wanted to. I got into band. I was doing. My school had a band and a choir, and I'd started doing band in fifth grade. That was as soon as you could do it. And I remember I just picked my school had 3 instruments to offer like on loan, and I knew I didn't want to like have to buy an instrument, so I just picked the largest one they had, and it was a euphonium.
Okay.
So I started on the euphonium, as a fifth grader, and then a year or two later, I I was like, choir might be a thing I could do, and they need more guys. Like middle school choir. It's like it was like me, two or three other guys, and like 15 girls. So
It's
it's
still not a large choir. It's still like a chamber kind of size.
yeah, definitely. I mean, we were all like we learned a couple two part pieces basically, and I went to a school called Saint Cecilia's as well, and that's the patron saint of music. And
Yeah.
I ironically had a not so good music program, but
Where was it?
it was in Beaverton, Oregon, where I am originally from. And so I started out doing that. And when I went to high school, I still wanted to keep doing choir and band, but I went to school where I couldn't really do both at the same time just because of scheduling. I had, it was considered an elective, and I could only have one for my first my freshman and sophomore year of high school. And so I just said, I've done band longer, so I should keep doing that. And I stopped singing for those first 2 years and just played the euphonium. And then I guess later on I picked up the bass guitar as well and started playing that in the pep band and in my own time. But then once I became a junior, I could do two electives again, and I got back into choir. And in growing up in Portland, I guess like our exposure to classical music was pretty minimal because I didn't know like opera was a potential, like was a thing that still happened. I thought it was like a dead art form and that like people didn't do it anymore. And
How,
I knew
how were you aware of opera anyway? How do
I
you?
became I became aware of it in college,
No, no,
actually.
but then in high school, because you say you thought it was a dead art, but you think that it's a dead art, you had to be aware that it
Yeah,
existed.
well, I was aware of it enough through like cartoons, I guess,
I see.
and like popular media and its references in that. I was like, I guess opera had to have existed for those things to, you
I
know,
see. I see. I see.
be a thing. But otherwise it just didn't it wasn't relevant to my musical life in high school. I was in the band and I was in the choir, and so my only conception of classical singing really was choir, and I enjoyed that. I just didn't know if there was like a way to like go pro. So I remember the first time I saw
Hi to
someone.
Naomi. Naomi just joined us.
Naomi.
By the
I
way,
remember.
Kiani said that she saw you and Raquel last month, and it was
Oh
fantastic.
yeah. Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Um, yes. Now, I remember the first time I heard someone, it was just singing solo with a piano. I was like, oh my gosh, that's amazing. I want to do that.
When was
And
that?
I think that was actually my senior year of high school.
Okay.
I saw someone, one of my fellow students was like singing an art song or something. And because it was funny at the time, I thought the theater kids were really annoying, and I had zero interest in doing musical theater, and so I stayed away from it predominantly. But like art song, I was like, this is very virtuosic. I like how difficult and classical sounding this singing is. I would like to do that.
Good.
And so yeah, so when I got into college, I was singing in the choirs, and then in order to sing in the choirs I had to take voice lessons, and I'd never had voice lessons before, and so I was doing voice lessons and learning art songs and learning how to perform those for people. And um, then like I was doing that long enough, the head of the voice department there was like, we need more guys in our chorus for our opera, so you're in it. And it was La Boheme.
Oh, nice.
And I sat in some of the rehearsals, like some of the tech rehearsals for that, and just got to hear that music sung with the orchestra and all. And it was again like that was kind of my first experience of singing with orchestra, and before just singing with piano was enough for me to be like, oh, I want to do this. And then I heard that, and I was like, wow, this this really appeals to my interests. So
And which school was this?
this was at Portland State University
Okay, good.
in Portland, Oregon,
Portland. Okay.
and
And did you? What was your major then?
it was just general music because I was still playing instruments, but I was singing in choir and I was kind of writing music at the time too, and I just didn't know which thing I was actually any good at or wanted to do. And so
But you
yeah,
knew that you know that you wanted to focus in music if possible.
yeah, I knew I wanted to have like music had become a part of my identity and I wanted that to be like a part of my life going forward. But again, it was just like I didn't know how like the path to actually making a career out of it, like I
Right.
didn't know what sort of the professional opportunities and that whole side of it really were. And that was something I learned over time, but at the time I was just like um and I think most people learn that over time. Like the impetus starts with, I really love this
Right.
or I'm really good at it and I want to keep doing it. And but for me, it didn't start with me being like that I'm good at it. I feel like I got lucky that I ended up being any good at it. It started with, I really love this and it'd be great if I could do it. And I just like happened to be able to. So with, many years of lessons and practice and what have you. But but yeah, I know after La Boheme, after being in the course for La Boheme, the next year I auditioned for all the opera stuff, the scenes, like they were doing a production of Falstaff the next year, and I got cast as Bardolfo in that,
Right.
and I just never looked back. It was just all opera for me, all the time from then on. And
When did you do Bardolfo? Which year in high school?
I think that was
No, no, no. I
2000.
mean, which year in your college?
Oh,
It's
I think I would have been in my third year. So I
okay.
was like, I think I was just 20,
Your
20 or
junior
21.
year or something.
Yeah.
Right, and then you decided to.
Yeah, I did. So I did that. I did the school's opera basically the whole time the rest is I was in college, and then I started doing some competitions, and I worked with a teacher that like really taught me how to sing. And then I remember my first professional gig was a little opera company in Oregon called Opera Theater Oregon. They were doing a version of Werther, and I was one of the smaller parts in that. And then I started doing more like concert work. Like I was getting hired to sing Messiah and sing Beethoven 9, and I even did a Verdi Requiem one time, which like I look back on that now and I'm like, how the heck did I sing that? But I did, and just other things, and so yeah. So as I was getting closer to finishing my degree, I knew I didn't want to take time off because it wasn't a linear path to becoming a major for like I eventually majored in classical singing, but I didn't start out that way, and so it ended up taking me longer to finish my degree. I was there for probably like 5, 6 years or something, but thankfully PSU is like a very cheap school to attend, so I didn't break the bank doing that. But so yeah, I was a little older. I was probably 24, 25 by the time I wanted to do grad school. So I was like, I don't need to take a gap year. I can just go right into it, and I applied to Manhattan School of Music and Curtis, University of Michigan, and Southern Methodist University.
Oh wow, that's
Yeah.
unusual. Where is that?
That's in Dallas, and
Oh,
that
okay.
was actually I did a competition. I think it was at Classical Singer or something, and they approached me and were interested in getting me to come to the school, and I was like, all right, and it was so I applied because they asked me to, but and I got in, and they uh, gave me a good offer to go, but I got a really good offer from Manhattan School of Music too, and I known some other singers from Portland State that went there, and like we're doing great things from it, and I was just like, yeah, I just feel like I want to go to New York. I was like I was hungry for more art and culture.
Hmm.
Anyways, like Portland has some, but not a lot. And I knew New York had a lot, and that's what I really wanted was, to like get more immersed in being able to like go to see the New York Phil or go to the Met or go to Carnegie Hall and just like um, experience all that stuff. And so yeah, so ultimately, and I did get an audition at Curtis, and I went and I did the first audition, and I thought it went okay, but I didn't get called back. And but yeah, so I ended up going to Manhattan School of Music, and that's where I met you.
Yep.
You coached me in my first opera there. It was The Mother of Us All.
All right. That was your first opera. All right.
Yeah, yeah, that was like my first like semester there, and that was a great experience.
Okay.
I feel like it's one of those ones where like during it you're like really into the opera, like I really enjoyed working on it, but then like down the road I listened to it and I'm like, that's really like not that good of an opera. Like,
I I enjoyed it. I mean, I haven't heard it back, but I enjoyed the piece.
yeah, yeah, I
Really.
was like, I don't know. I always felt the Gertrude Stein libretto was tough, but like
Yeah, it is.
ultimately we made it sense. We made it make sense for us,
Yeah.
and that's what mattered. But yeah, but anyways, so yeah, so I did that and uh, did finish my master's at MSM, and it was. I remember my second year. I just remember like the problem with my second year was I overloaded myself. Like everyone wanted to. I wanted to perform in everything, and everyone let me. And it was ultimately like I just had too many. By my last semester, I had like stretched myself too thin. I was like doing the Baroque aria ensemble. I was doing the the opera studio. We were doing like a production of we were doing Lock May. Um, I had a recital to do. I should have done my recital my first semester, but I put it off until February in the second semester, and so I was doing that as well. And I think I was even doing some stuff outside of school on top of that. And so I don't know if I could go back and change it. I would probably do at least one less thing, and
Okay.
just be able to focus on what I'd chosen to do better. But
Yeah,
yeah,
but there is a value in doing a lot of things at the same time. Also, I mean, it's just maybe of course you don't control it as well, but there is there's a lot of information, learning fast, managing timing, managing your time in rehearsals, and it's a in a way school is a safe environment for that because
mhm.
you it's okay
Yeah,
to fail. It's okay to fail also
it's
in
fair. Yeah, right, exactly. And
yeah,
that's, I mean, I at least learned that about myself, like what like the breaking point is for that.
right.
And I have too many things going on, so
I remember when I was in Michigan, again, I was also lucky to do as many things as possible. And as a company majors, because we have a stipend, we had to work for the school and do um, a lot of accompanying lessons, and then you had to also coach the singers. But then I had a lot of private things, and people asked for recitals, and you had to do my own recitals. And then I got a assistantship at Opera Philadelphia, and I was doing the opera also in school. So, and someone asked me to do Pierrot Lunaire, and I thought it was very interesting and very cool. But that's not my kind of music, and it does
uh,
not. It just that it didn't stick at all. It didn't stick, so I had to begrudgingly uh, give it up, and that was very hard for me to say. Sorry, I had to drop the project because you feel like such a
yes.
betrayal. But that also was good. That
Well, it's
happened.
just like it's not in our blood to have to like cancel stuff,
Right,
like it's one of the worst feelings I think as a classical musician to have to say, I can't do it.
yeah,
I know I
it
said I
is.
could, but I can't. It's like
Yeah, it feels bad. When do we brought you to Opera Williamsburg? Because you were covering Ramiro in
Yes.
Cenerentola.
Yes, I was covering Ramiro and singing the ensemble for for La Cenerentola. That was golly, I think I was out of school by that point, so I feel like it was like maybe 2016
Okay.
or like in the spring of 2017 even possibly.
Oh, oh. So after I brought you to Savannah.
Or yeah, no, I think it was 2016 because I think
Oh,
that was either before or yeah, no, it was before I did Martino Arroyo's um, summer program, and I think that was the summer of 2016. So I think it was like spring 2016.
great. All right. Yeah.
And yeah, that was a great experience. A lot of fond memories. I got to like do a bunch of singing with like very close friends of mine who I met at Manhattan School of Music, and uh, yeah, it was a good. I mean, the music we made was great, but the experience of it was memorable as well.
Good. 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 And how was your first experience in Savannah?
Man, Savannah, it's not uh like it's not wrong to say that doing Savannah really changed my life. It really changed my trajectory in my career and so many things. But I mean, even the first summer before I even really knew what the heck gotten myself into, because I did come in being like, I'm not fully prepared for this. Like, I'd been hired to sing these concerts, which I knew very little about, and then like I'd say the concert part of doing Savannah is the most interesting and the most peculiar and difficult and rewarding parts of it. Like uh, you feel like the whole thing's hanging on by a string and it's going to fall apart at any moment, and there's never enough rehearsal and all this stuff, and then somehow by the end of it, the concert is amazing, and it really came together, and we added lots of odd levels of drama and intrigue to this otherwise just very ordinary program of music, and so that was something I wasn't like fully prepared for. I didn't know what I was getting myself into, and I feel like most people probably who do Savannah never do until they're doing it, and that's what's fun about it. I also like I was supposed to be understudy for Don Giovanni, and confession, like I really didn't learn the music well enough for that.
Right.
If I had to go on, if I had to go on, it would have been a mess. So that was another thing I was ill prepared for at the time. But in spite of my going into it and just being like, I'm really laying an egg here, everyone in Savannah was so supportive, and I was able to do enough like music that I was comfortable with, that I was doing well at the time, that Savannah also the powers that be there, and this, they can tell people's strengths. Like they can analyze like, okay, maybe you're not feeling great with this stuff, but I can tell you do this thing well, so let's highlight that. Like there's a willingness on their part to make adjustments to really highlight an individual singer's strengths and
Mhm.
and make them better. And I think getting the benefit of that was kind of one of the reasons I wanted to keep coming back and keep working uh, with all of y'all at Savannah. And on top of that, I mean, the other X factor is like the people there, the people we got to meet and interface with, whose houses we stayed in, who were at every concert and what have you. Those people, I mean, it was a level of not only like familiarity, but support that I hadn't felt. Like I feel like at that point I was kind of missing a community in a way. I'd been at my undergrad for a long time and had a kind of a community there, and then I'd gone to grad school, And at that point, when in 2014, I'd been at MSM for 1 year. Hadn't really established a community there yet, really. And so I was just in search of or in need of, a community of support. And Savannah really gave me that. It was, I mean, people who'd taken an interest in me and wanted me to do well, uh, and showed it, and like by showing up. And I'm still very like close friends with a lot of those people now, and I still consider them my Savannah family, my community. And that's I think the part of the Savannah, the whole like voice festival like experience that is worthwhile for any singer. If you're a singer at all that like feels like that, like you really need your like artistic community, that's something that's missing. Savannah's a pretty good one.
Great. Thank you. Yeah, good. Good. I'm glad to hear this. I'm sure all our people that are listening are very happy to hear, and because it is a very, as you know, it's a very big family, and it's built and on personal relationships all the time, and between the artists and the supporters. So it's really good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll give you an anecdote that made me think, okay, this is a group of people I want to be around. Someone, after their first time seeing me perform on stage, I think we were in Florida still that summer. We did a concert at it was like FSU or Central, or I don't know, one of the universities there we were singing
Mhm.
at. And some of the Savannah people came down to see the performances of that. Uh, and I've always struggled with my weight. I'm like a bigger guy, and I've just always been a bigger guy, and I feel self-conscious about it. It's an insecurity, particularly in this industry. I continually get comments from artistic, like the casting people, like lose 10, 20 pounds, whatever. So we finished this concert, and I won't say who it was, but someone, from the Savannah audience, the supporters who come to everything, he they'd never met me before. I'm meeting them for the first time, and we get to talking, and he says, "You are just the right size." He said, don't gain any weight, but don't lose any either. You are just the right size. And it was maybe the first time I'd ever heard that like in my life. And
Great.
for some reason, because of that, and because that was just like such a like weirdly like, I don't know, amazing compliment to receive, that was just like the balm I needed for that insecurity I had. Um, that's how I knew. I was like, okay, these are people I need in my life, and
Good.
I'm glad they still are.
Great. Well, that's nice. It's very nice actually, and I'm glad that you feel so at home in Savannah, and you keep coming. And so and then you were out of school and trying to do your thing and auditioning and probably temping and all of that. So um, how the audition to Phantom happen?
Yes, I did about 2 years of freelancing there, and part of that also was like managing some, not like vocal injury, but like vocal dysfunction that I was like, sort of rehabbing. And I was just like in a tough spot there. My like second year out of school. I basically that year, because of that, I didn't do very many auditions, and I was just thinking, God, like this is tough. But thankfully, Savannah was there to, even through all of that, they not only helped me deal with the rehab part of it, but also kept throwing work at me as I was rehabbing my voice to like keep me in the game, to keep me singing, to keep me from, uh,
Great.
not from forgetting my arias, what have you. So, um, and so in one of the versions that took was doing the summer, having me back to do the summer festival in I guess that'd be 2017. And so I'm there, and I'm singing around, and that year, Christian Shebek came to just work with some singers, mostly the younger singers. I think his one of his sons was there doing the can't voice or something, and so while he was there, Maria had known him from school or something. I had never heard of him, but Maria was like, "You should really sing for him," and I was like, "Okay, like I'll sing for anybody," and he gave me a time. They scheduled me in the schedules in Savannah are very, not, I wouldn't say grueling, but like tight, like it's two to
Lot
minute.
of lot of things happening.
Yeah. Like there's stuff happening everywhere and yeah, it's very tightly, but they're able to carve some time out for me, about 15 minutes. They gave me a room with a piano in it and, uh, an accompanist, Kevin Wallace, who was a local there at the time, and in the room with Christian, and they were just like, "Yeah, go in there and sing something with a high C." High C's are like my money note. And so I went in there and I sang a cut of "Be My Love," and at the end of it, Christian was just looking at me, didn't say anything for a second, and then he was like, "Why aren't you working, man?" And I was like, I'm trying to work. It's not for lack of trying. I would like to work. And he was like, well, you'd really be great for singing Pianji. And I didn't know it at the time, but he had sung Pianji in Phantom of the Opera for like 5 years.
Yeah.
And so he did that thing that a lot of people say they'll do for you in the business, but never actually do, which is like he stuck his neck out for me. He got a hold of contacts there, and actually so did Kevin. They were like, you really need to get in and sing for these people, and so they helped me get my materials to all the right people. They coached me on like how to word my emails, even. They were like, here's some, they're going to send you these sides, but then also like learn this song and this song. They gave me repertoire to do for this audition, the whole 9 yards. And it was really, amazing thing. And so I just kept, and this is like my advice to everybody, like keep following up. I just kept following up until it turned into a real audition. Basically, I got like an appointment audition for, shortly after the end of the festival. I think it was September 9th was my audition, and the festival had just ended at the end of August. So a little less than 2 weeks after the festival, I was auditioning for Phantom. And so I went in there with this song I learned from Utopia Limited by Gilbert and Sullivan, and the sides they gave me from the show, which are just like, excerpts from the show. And I did that first audition. I actually had a trip planned to Portugal to visit Paulo Lapa and Tiago Matos, but I had to cancel it to do this audition for Phantom, which at the time I felt sort of bad about, but ultimately it worked out. But
It was good. Yeah.
but yeah, I did my audition. I did my callback 2 days later, and then 10 days after that, they called me and offered me the job.
Wow.
And I know, I thought for sure, I was like, I think I'm too young for this part. The character breakdown says like late 30s, early 50s for age, and I was like 29 at the time. I was just thinking of all the reasons why they probably wouldn't cast me, and so it was like the longest 10 days ever, basically. And then when they called me and offered me the job, I freaked out on them. I called my mom. I called my old voice teacher. Like I called Maria. I called everybody who I could think would like want to know. And and then a month after that, I started rehearsal. I think it was like middle of October. I got 2 weeks of rehearsal, which didn't feel like enough, but for musical theater folk, that's a long time. And and then I debuted at Phantom on October 30th, 2017.
Wow, right there. Like
Yeah.
2 months. Like I guess essentially 2 months after you met Shabik.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
was literally. I mean, it was a very fast. Like it just happened very, very quickly, and and it's also like I wasn't that familiar with Phantom of the Opera in the first place, too. Like I had to really acquaint myself in that time with the show as well, and of course now I'm very well acquainted with the show. But
You can see the whole thing probably,
oh
obviously.
yeah,
Yeah, obviously, yeah. Wow, that's great. So you said that 2 weeks of rehearsal, which I understand you said it didn't wasn't a long time. But tell us what is the process for rehearse from scratch? Because again, and you're coming from a different world. Is some people are following these shows forever and they know it by memory even when they're 15. But
Mhm.
we coming from the opera world, we're not aware of many of these things. I mean, I only saw it for the first time when you invited us last year, and
Yeah,
I had never seen, and I knew some tunes of it, obviously, but didn't know much. And I enjoy that. I always, one thing I do is when I don't know a show of anything, I mean, usually no opera, but I don't want to know anything about it. I just want to
yeah,
go like a lay person, and like it's going to see a show for the first time and be surprised with the story and taken in a journey that the creators had in mind. Because when composer and librettist, lyricists and everyone makes a book, they don't expect to do it for the people that come to see it 5 times. They want to
right.
create a show for the person that sees it for the first time. So anyway, so you didn't know it. I mean, you can learn it fast. I'm sure when you have the audition and the callback, you learn it really fast because you
Yes.
you in 2 hours you have seen it, and then in the next 2 hours you're seeing it again. But tell me, how is the process of Broadway to put a person that is a major character, a very exposed character in a major show?
I mean, it's an interesting thing, because it's not like a new production of a musical or like an opera where everyone's showing up to start the process in anticipation of the first performance of the whole production. This is one where like performances are happening while we're rehearsing. Like the show isn't stopping. I'm getting put into the show, and that was a new experience for me. Was getting put into an existing, currently running show. That virtually never happens in opera, or if it does, it's you're a last minute fill in to do one or two performances or something, and it's like an emergency situation. This is like a normal thing, and but it came with benefits, and one of those benefits was for the first week we were in a rehearsal studio, and I got lucky. I got cast at the same time as a new Carlotta, and Carlotta and Piangi are in virtually every scene together, and so we
And
had the
that is
benefit of learning
Raquel.
stuff together. Sorry, say again.
Was this Raquel?
Yes, Raquel,
Okay.
who she went to MSM as well, and I think she's worked with Maria, not in Savannah, but uh, I think it was like IVAI or something back in the day. But yeah, she's a disciple of Diana Sovieros, and she's really good. She's a great singer and been like a great colleague. But so we
Yeah,
we,
it's
we
funny
were
that
learning it.
for this cast, they have three major MSM grads, and we're all kind of at the same time with Christine, Megan Picherno, which
Yeah,
and Raquel Suarez, and you, and all the three of you have been also in Williamsburg before, and
yeah,
Megan did Gilda, and Raquel did Janetta, and Raquel, yes, knew really well Maria because I think they were working in Virginia,
yeah, yeah,
because Raquel came through. I'm not sure if it was through Diana already or through Mignon, but eventually she was connected with Diana, And great. So the two of you
Yeah.
start.
So we had together. We were in the rehearsal studio with essentially a dance captain and assistant dance captain and the director. Um,
Is that a
member.
main director? I mean, they have a repository
Well,
director.
yeah, it wasn't Hal Prince himself. It was at the time I think his title was the associate director. His name's Seth Sklarheim, but he and so we're getting all the input we need in terms of learning the blocking, learning the sort of dramatic elements and the music. Before we even got in the studio, we had some vocal rehearsals with the music director to get the music down. But because Raquel and I are from the opera world, we mostly had it all learned before we even got there, because that's the expectation in opera. It is not the expectation in musical theater, I learned.
Really? Okay.
A lot of times people in musical theater, they show up to the first rehearsal and they're like, all right, let's learn the music. Like there's very little music preparation happens outside of the rehearsal room in musical theater. And in opera, you're kind of expected to do a lot of it on your own. Just
Right.
because, there's a lot of it. Like, you got to spread the work around in opera for sure.
Right.
But so the benefit of the show still running while we were rehearsing is we could rehearse during the day. We'd rehearse from like 10 to 5, and then, or like noon to 5, really. And then we would, at night, we'd go to the theater and we'd watch. We'd watch the performances, and we would be able, it'd sort of reinforce what we'd learned that day. We could watch it happening on the stage and get a familiarity of like what the spacing actually is like with all the people and in the different areas of the stage. So that was one benefit of that process of like why I felt like we were able to get to the point we were able to get to in the 2 weeks, was we were able to sort of reinforce what we did during the day by watching it happen at night. And and so your first week's in a rehearsal studio for the most part, and then you get onto the stage, and the people you're rehearsing with, you to start doing rehearsals with understudies of different parts of like when you're in scenes, like Raquel and I are in a lot of scenes together with like 6 other people a lot of the time, and so we didn't have the benefit of them in our first week of rehearsal, but in the second week you get the understudies for those parts and they'll rehearse it with you. So then we're getting a better familiarity of like where people are in the scene, and like when you're crossing in front of people or behind people and things like that, and positioning on the stage. And then you get your technical elements in there of like, I got one rehearsal with the elephant. I climb an elephant in the show, and I'm wearing a 50-pound costume at the time. And so
Wow.
I remember that was the thing I was like, one of the things I was scared of the most for my debut, because we rehearsed all the way up till, I think it was like a Friday. And then we had Saturday dark, Sunday dark, and then we debuted on a Monday. And I remember between the Friday rehearsal and those 2 dark days, the whole time I was like, oh God, what if I don't make it up in time? What if I don't get up the elephant in time? I only got one rehearsal. I don't know if I am familiar enough with how to do it. And so the debut night came, and I climbed up the elephant so fast that I got up to the top, and I was up there way too early. And so I was kind of like sitting around waiting for the musical button to happen for me to pull my sword out or whatever. But so yeah, the majority is like your first week's in the studio and you're watching. The second week you're on the stage and you have more people, and then you do what's called a put-in, which is basically a dress rehearsal, except you're the only one who's dressed. Everyone else is dressed to rehearse, but you're in all your costumes, so you can sort of get a feel for what that's actually like. Right. But the whole company shows up, and you essentially, you do you basically run the whole show.
When did that happen? When did you run the show with your dress rehearsal?
I think my put-in was that Friday. It was like the last rehearsal we did was the put-in, and then I had Saturday and Sunday to go to my best friend's wedding, and then on Monday was my debut.
Oh, what a great weekend!
Yeah, it was crazy.
So and that dress rehearsal with you and Raquel being in full costumes, and so I assume it's with piano, but is it with the conductor and all the ensembles and everything is there, or do you rehearse just your scenes?
The conductor and the whole ensemble, I mean, the whole cast is there. For us, like for our parts, and for most parts in the show, you just do the scenes you're in. For the put-in, for the for that dress rehearsal, unless if you're Christine or if you're the Phantom, or Raoul, I think even, you'll get like a full, essentially like the whole show. Like especially as a Phantom, it's basically like every element is involved, like the technical elements, the lighting, the orchestra's there. We did get a little bit of orchestra rehearsal, but it was kind of. I think it was on that Friday as well. We did the put in and then we got to come in sort of before the performance as the orchestra. The orchestra was called, I think, like 30 minutes before, and we got 30 minutes of orchestra rehearsal with them. So and that's relatively rare, but it's, like for our parts, I think arguably more necessary. So but yeah, relatively little rehearsal, I would say, with the orchestra leading up to performances and stuff. And I remember the most jarring thing between rehearsal and performances was the lighting, because we're using the work lights for all our rehearsals. So as soon as the performances are happening, we don't have those. It's suddenly much darker up backstage.
Right.
I was like, in the blackout moments, I really can't see anything, and I'm not familiar enough with the stage to like assume where stuff is, and it was just rough.
Wow. And how was dealing with the microphone situation?
It was interesting. I thought it was going to be more challenging, frankly. I'd have to like learn how to really like sing into the microphone. But the thing is, I kind of lucked out. My part in the show, he's actually an opera singer, and often my scenes are in the context of like an opera happening within the context of the show, and so. I'm sort of, my charge is to sing operatically a lot of the time in the show. And so I kind of, going into it like that, I was like, it's appropriate dramatically here to sing with my full opera technique here, regardless of whether I'm mic'd or not. So I decided I wasn't going to compromise my like sort of vocal integrity there, technically wise. There's a few scenes where, like there's scenes where Piangi's playing a character in an opera, and there's other scenes where you're just Piangi. And those are the cases where you can sort of create a technical distinction singing-wise. Like when you're in an opera as Piangi, you want to sing operatically, and maybe when you're not, you do it less. You find, or at least you find important moments to let that come out of you as the character. But otherwise, you are just, singing with an Italian accent, basically.
And when did you rehearse the miking?
That happened later as well. I think the first time we really got to use the mics, it was for our put-in.
Oh, wow.
And, it's a little bit one of those wheels. It's one of those things of like, it's Jesus take the wheel. Like you go and you do your thing, and you hope the guy at the sound desk like turns your microphone on at the right time and at the right level. Like you can't do a whole lot about it. And it's like we probably, on some level, all of us could probably do the show without being mic'd. But since everything is amplified, like the orchestra's mic'd as well. So if the orchestra's mic'd and you're not, then like there's no chance you're going to be heard over it. So everything has to be mic'd, and there's good reason for that. There's things that happen in the show that like you need a PA for an amplification system for, and so it's like I get it, but yeah, I mean that theater was originally designed for like not for having amplified sound in it, and it could probably still work like that, but just because because everything is amplified, then like. And I've had some times where my mic cut out, or my mic was switched, or my mic went up into my wig and away from my face or something. And I was just like, okay, I got to blast this right now so people can hear me.
Fun.
But
Yeah. All right, Carl. Well, thank you so much for being with us. We can keep going talking about details of
yeah,
anything, but it was just fantastic. Very nice to talking to you. I will see you tonight. We have an
yeah.
event. But thank you and thank you again for your very beautiful words about your experience in Havana.
Oh
That's
yeah.
I think everyone will appreciate it. So
Love Savannah, and for everyone who watches this later, you're deeply appreciated. And thank you so much for having me, Jorge.
thank
And
you. Pleasure.
yeah, I look forward to seeing you tonight.
Yeah, we'll talk soon. And everyone, thank you for joining us. And I will see you in 2 weeks on another show of Voices of the Festival. We'll talk soon. Thank you.
All
Bye.
right, bye.